हरे कृष्ण। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। हरे कृष्ण। So we welcome you all to the seventh day, the last day of part 2 of this series, Rediscovering Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. But tomorrow we are starting part 3 of the same series, so which will go on for another 7 days, and hopefully by then we will be able to complete this course. We may be able to complete it even before the 7th day is over. So 7 days just in case we are not able to complete, but most likely we will be able to complete it even before that. So this is what we are doing now, is a detailed overview of Vaidhi Sadhana, Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti section of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, just so that we can understand our own practice better and practice better actually. So when there is clarity in our own practice, then it gives us all the more impetus to practice it nicely. But when there is lack of clarity, then we tend to postpone it. Okay, when it becomes clear, then I will practice it nicely. For now, let me postpone it, like that. So therefore, we are trying to get some clarity as to what exactly our acharyas want us to practice, what are the details of it, how exactly they want us to practice it, what is the mood of practice. So with that inspiration, we are trying to understand this book Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu from a more practical application point of view. So we have had about, including today, about roughly 15-16 hours of discussion already, and hopefully there is some clarity in our own practice which has come about. That's my hope and prayers. Then whatever time we have spent is fruitful. If it inspires us to practice better, if it inspires us by giving us little more clearer understanding of what is expected of us as Vaidhi sadhakas. So that's my hope and prayers. So with that, we will continue today's discussion. Yesterday, we briefly saw the angas of devotional service, the 64 limbs we saw, and we ended with the last 5 limbs. And today we were going to see the proofs for the 64 limbs. Starting from today, what are the various proofs that the acharyas have given to emphasize the importance of these 64 limbs in a sadhaka's life. So Srila Rupa Goswami says especially about the last 5 limbs. Duruha adbhuta viryesmin श्रद्धा दूरेस्तु पंचके यत्र स्वल्पोपि संबंधः सद्यां भावजन्मनि. He says, Dur'uha adbhuta viryesmin. Dur'uha means very difficult to understand, very difficult to fathom. Adbhuta virye. Panchake. These last 5 items that have been mentioned have inconceivably astonishing power. Asmin shraddha dure astu. What to speak of having faith in these 5 items. Yatra swalpapi sambandha. Even if one has little bit of touch with these 5 items, sadhyam, and provided that person has no offensive attitude, bhava janmani, such a person can attain the stage of bhava in this very lifetime. So that is the potency of these 5 limbs, last 5 limbs which have been mentioned. And we saw the real meaning of these 5 limbs. It is not just deity worship, it is not just association of Vaishnavas, it is not just visiting Dham, it is not just worshipping the deity form of the Lord, and it is not just reading Bhagavatam. So we had an understanding of how do we approach these 5 limbs? What are the various aspects of approaching these 5 limbs? As we saw in the case of association with Vaishnavas, Sajatiya Ashe Snigde Sadhu Sanga Svatovare. These 4 aspects we have to endeavor for. A relationship means it has to have these 4 features, or rather we should have at least a few relationships which has these 4 features. Then that kind of an association is powerfully nourishing our spiritual lives. Similarly, we may worship the deities, but we should understand that someday or other we have to develop preeti. Shrimurter Angri Sevane Preeti. One should have that affection, attraction for serving the lotus feet of the Lord. Somehow we have to do something. We have to associate with those people who have that taste for serving the deities, so that when we serve those devotees, we may get some attraction for serving the deities. So, and it's not visiting the Dham is not one of the 5 potent limbs. It is one of the limbs, but Mathura Vasa. One should stay in the Dham, at least mentally. One should always meditate on the Dham, various pastime places in the Dham, do mental parikrama. If one's consciousness is fixed in this way, then that is a very potent limb of devotional service, one of the 5 potent limbs. And then when it comes to chanting the holy name, it is Harinama Sankirtan. One should chant the holy name while being devoid of offenses and in the association of devotees. Then it is a very potent limb. So we have covered Dham, Nam and Bhagavatam. Reading Bhagavatam is a limb of devotional service, but it is not one of the most potent limbs. Srimad Bhagavata Arthanam Aswadaihi Rasikaihi Saha. One should relish the deeper meanings of Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of devotees who have great love for Krishna Katha. In their association, one should relish the deeper meanings of Bhagavatam. When one has a habit of doing this, then it is one of the 5 most potent limbs of devotional service. So in this way, Duruha Adbhuta Viryesmin Shraddha Durestu Panchake. Shraddha to dur ki baat hai. Yatra swalpopi sambandha, even little bit of association with even one of these 5 items, sadhyam bhava janmane. It can very quickly take one to the stage of bhava if that person's heart is free of offenses. So this is the potency of these last 5 limbs. Of course, we are going to revisit those last 5 limbs towards the end of this section, but for now we will start seeing the scriptural proof for the 64 angas of devotional service. Those of you, many of you, while we were discussing the 64 limbs, must have felt, oh, I forgot to note down, oh, what is the 54th limb or whatever. Or someone would have felt, oh, I need to know little more about these 64 limbs. Oh, about this limb, I need some elaboration. So that's exactly what we are going to do now. We are going to see Srila Rupa Goswami's elaboration. He is going to discuss about each of these 64 limbs in little more, not exactly detail, he is just going to present some proofs from Shrimad Bhagavatam or some other Puranas which glorifying these 64 limbs. So that we can develop a very proper attraction to these limbs. So let's start with the first limb, Adav Guru Padashraya, taking shelter of the lotus feet of Guru. So he quotes this famous verse from the teachings of the Navayogendras to Nimi Maharaj, 11th canto, 3rd chapter. So here one of the Navayogendras, Prabuddha, so he is teaching Nimi Maharaj about how to progress on the path of devotional service by surrendering unto the lotus feet of a Guru. So he says, Tasmad Gurum Prapadyeta Jigyasu Shreyamuttamam Shabde Parecha Nishnatam Brahmanyupasamashrayam. He says, Tasmad, therefore, because he describes about how dangerous is this material world, and punarapi jananam punarapi maranam punarapi janani jatare shayanam iha samsare bahu dustare kripaya pare pahi murare, as Srila Shankaracharya says in his Bhajagovindam prayers. Punarapi jananam punarapi maranam, there is constant birth and death. Punarapi janani jatare shayanam, and again we will have to take birth from the womb of a mother, which is excruciatingly painful. Iha samsare bahu dustare, it's very difficult to cross this ocean of samsara. Kripaya pare pahi murare, my dear Murari, my dear Krishna, kindly help me cross over this ocean of material existence. And Krishna does that through the agency of Guru. Tasmad, therefore, that is the meaning of Tasmad here. Because this samsara, there is nothing really attractive in this samsara. Because there is nothing really worth hankering for in this ocean of samsara. Tasmad, therefore, in order to cross this samsara, Gurum Prapadyeta, one should take shelter of a Guru. Jigyasu Shreyam Uttamam, if that person is inquisitive about Uttamam Shreyah, real happiness, happiness beyond this material world, if someone wants to, is genuinely inquisitive to know about what is the highest, how can I achieve a kind of happiness which is beyond what is available in this material world, then he needs a Guru. Otherwise, one need not approach a Guru for bettering one's own material position. For dharma, artha, kama, or even moksha. Of course, for moksha one needs a Guru. But the real purpose of approaching a Guru should be to establish a relationship with Krishna. That is a bona fide reason to approach a Guru. Otherwise, we don't have to go and tell, my dear Gurudev, I am suffering from this disease, please help me overcome it. We could go to a doctor for that. We don't need a Guru. Therefore, Prabuddha says, Shreya Uttamam Shreyah Jigyasuhu Gurum Prapadyeta. One who desires the greatest good, he should approach a Guru. And what is the qualification of such a Guru? Shabde Parecha Nishnatam Brahmani Upasamashrayam. Nishnatam. Nishnatam means he should be an expert in Shabde. Shabde means the Bhakti scriptures. As a Guru need not be expert in all the sections of, a Vaishnava Guru need not be an expert in all the parts of the Vedas. So, as it is mentioned about Suta Goswami, because to become a Vaishnava Guru, one need not be born in a high family. High birth is not a prerequisite to become a Vaishnava. What to speak of becoming a Vaishnava? To become a Vaishnava guru also, there is no need for high birth. It is not that only Brahmanas can become Vaishnava gurus. Avaishnavo gururna syat Vaishnavo shvapacho guru. Mantra tantra visharadaha. Avaishnavo gururna syat Vaishnava shvapacho guru. So, one may be very expert in chanting the mantras, performing the tantras, doing the mudras, and they may be well read in the Vedic scriptures. But at the end of studying all these Vedic literatures, if they don't come to the conclusion that the only personality who is fit to surrender is Krishna or Vishnu, then such a person is not a Vaishnava, and he is not fit to be a guru. But Vaishnava Shvapacho Guru, even if one may be a Chandala, he is fit to be a guru if he has surrendered himself to Krishna. So, Shabde means the Bhakti scriptures. Even though Shabda Praman includes all the Vedic literatures, in this particular context it refers only to the Bhakti literatures, because for studying the other parts of the literature such as the Upanishads and the other parts, one needs a proper birth and training. One should be a Brahmana. But of course they give only from Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. But interestingly, if one wants the Panchama Purushartha, the topmost Purushartha of Krishna Prema, by practice of Bhakti, for that there is no material qualification needed. Bhakti literatures anyone can read. Bhagavatam anyone can read. One does not need a Brahman Diksha or birth in a Brahmana family to study the Bhakti part of the Vedas. To study the other part of the Vedas, which talk about Traigunya Vishaya, as Krishna says, Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunyo Bhavarjuna. The other scriptures talk about Traigunya Vishaya. Therefore, they will take you from Dharma, Artha, Kama to Moksha, so which is all, Moksha of course is transcendental, but the means of attaining Moksha is within three gunas only. They are Sattvika. Therefore, one needs to be a Brahmana who is predominantly in Sattva Guna to study them and all that. But to get the benefit of Prema, which is beyond the three modes, one has to study the Bhakti scriptures, which are also beyond the three modes, for which there is no need for any material qualification. So therefore he says he must be conversant with the Bhakti scriptures, meaning he need not be able to quote verse after verse after verse. He is not talking about the memory part, how many verses the Guru has memorized, but he should actually know the purport, the import of all those verses. What is the conclusion of the Vaishnava Shastras? The Sambandha, the Abhideya and Prayojana. And he must have very deep conviction in those understandings. That is Shabde Parecha Shabde Nishnatam. Pare Brahmani Nishnatam means he must be accomplished in hearing and chanting about the Lord. He must have great taste in the process of hearing and chanting. And Upashama Ashrayam. As a result of his taken shelter of Bhakti, he must have developed a tranquil disposition. What is the meaning of tranquil disposition? Vacho Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam, Jihva Vegam, Udaropasta Vegam, Etan Veganyo Vishaheta Dira, Sarvan Apimam Prativimscha Sishyat. The first verse of Nectar of Instruction. If by taking shelter of the process of Bhakti, he is able to control the six urges, the urge to speak, the urge of the mind to think about various different things, the urge of anger, the urge of the tongue to eat palatable food, the urge of the belly to overeat, and the urge of the genitals to have sexual enjoyment. If one has controlled these 6 urges, then he is fit to be a guru. That's what he is indicating here. So 3 qualities of the guru have been mentioned. Shabde Nishnatam. He must be expert in the conclusions of the Bhakti scriptures. Pare Brahmani Nishnatam. He must have great taste and accomplished in the process of hearing and chanting. And the third qualification is that Upashama Ashrayam. He must be fully tranquil, having taken shelter of, fully tranquil in the sense he must be completely he must have complete control over these 6 urges. So one should approach such a guru if when one is ready to inquire about the Uttama Shreya, about the real happiness, how one can attain real happiness beyond what is available in this material world. That is what this verse is talking about. Tasmad gurum prapadyeta jigyasu shreyam uttamam shabde parecha nishnatam brahmani upashama ashrayam. The acharyas say one should surrender to a guru who is skillful in understanding the meaning of the Vedas and other scriptures. If he does not have this quality, then the faith of the disciple will become weak. So if every time the disciple approaches the guru to ask about the nature of bhakti, the nature of the Supreme Lord, if he says, well, I don't know, let me consult and get back to you. Once in a while, if there is some detail, the guru can do that. But if it is a principle, and the guru always says, oh, I don't know, I'll ask someone and tell you, then the disciple will feel, well, then tell me whom do you ask, I will accept him as the guru. So the guru should know, he is expected to not the details, but the essential principles. Otherwise, the disciple's faith will become weak. Since he will not be able to destroy the doubts of the disappointed disciple, he should be capable as well in realizing the Lord. Pare Brahmani Nishnataha. As a result of his practice of bhakti, he must have realized the Supreme Lord. Such a person is fit to be a guru. Otherwise, his mercy will not bear results if he has not himself realized the Supreme Lord. And at that position, he is not affected by anger, greed, etc. Upashama Ashrayam. That is what is indicated by the first verse of NOI. He must have the ability to control the 6 urges. So now, Bhagavatam also elsewhere talks about the importance of a guru. Famous verse, Nridehamadyam sulabam sudurlabam plavam sukalpam guru karnadaram mayanukulena nabasvateritam puman bababdim nataretsa atmaha. He says, Nrideham adyam, this human body is sudurlabam, very rarely attained. And adyam, sulabam, but sometimes it is very easily attained by association of, by some good fortune, one easily attains this human body. Plavam sukalpam. And what is this human body? It is like a well-crafted boat or a ship. It's like a most well-crafted ship. And Guru Karnadaram, in that ship, and this ship tries to cross over not the Atlantic Ocean or Pacific Ocean. This ship tries to cross over the ocean of samsara. And every ship needs a captain to guide. That is the guru. Maya anukulena nabasvata iritam. And the process of serving the Supreme Lord, that is compared to the favorable winds. In the voyage of a ship, captain may be there, but favorable winds are also needed. If it is too turbulent winds, then the ship will have lot of troubles to cross over the ocean. So, maya anukulena nabasvata iritam. So, The ship has to be pushed by the favorable winds of positive service towards Krishna, bhakti, the process of bhakti. Despite having the process, the guru, and the human body, puman bhavabdim nataret. If a person does not still endeavor to cross over this ocean of material existence, sa atmaha, he is like a killer of his own soul. If he is wasting it in mundane, useless pursuits and not inquiring about how I can cross this ocean of samsara, he is just wasting this human form of body, and he may not get a human form in his next life. So therefore, one should be careful and accept the shelter of the captain, which is Guru. That is Adav Guru Padashraya. That is the first of the 64 limbs. Then second limb is Shri Krishna Dikshadi Sikshanam. Accept the Diksha initiation and then the instruction, Siksha from the Guru. So in order to support this point, Srila Rupa Goswami quotes the very next verse in the teachings of Prabuddha, one of the nine Yogendras, to Nimi Maharaj. Tatra bhagavatan dharman shikshed gurvatma daivatah amayayanu vrityayais tushyed atmatmado harihi. He says, Guru Atma Daivatah. What should be our mood of approaching that Guru? Guru Atma Daivatah. One should accept that bona fide spiritual master as one's life and soul, Atma, and Daivatah, one's worshipable deity. Sakshad Haritvena Samasta Shastrair Uktastata Bhavyatayeva Sadbihi Kintu Praboryar Priyaeva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur mentions in his Gurvashtakam prayers. Sakshad Haritvena Samasta Shastra. The Shastras very categorically and emphatically establish that the Guru is in one sense non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He should be worshipped. He should be given the same respect as one would give the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Elsewhere in the Shastras also it is mentioned, Yasya deve parabhaktir yata deve tata gurau tasyaiva katita hyartaha prakashante mahatmanaha. When one gives the same kind of respect to the Guru as one would give to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only to such a person the deeper imports of the Shastras will be revealed. Yasya deve parabhaktir yata deve tata gurau. So, that is the meaning of Guru Atma Daivataha. Shikshed. He should learn from that Guru. What? Bhagavatan Dharman. He should not learn from him Dhanurvidya or Ayurveda. These things, okay, that also needs a teacher, but a Guru is a very grave thing. From the Guru, we have to learn the process of pure bhakti only. That is what is worthy to be gained. The most worthiest thing to be gained through the association of a Guru is how can I serve Krishna in the following the footsteps of the great Acharyas. Shuddha Bhakti. Sikshed Bhagavatan Dharman, and how should he learn? Amayaya Anuvritya. Amayaya means non-duplicitous, very sincere, simple and sincere service. Anuvritti is service. Amayaya means non-duplicitous, with a clean heart, with, like they say, jam ke seva karna, means with complete sincerity serving that Guru for the pleasure of the Guru. If a devotee serves, then the Guru teaches him Sikshed Bhagavatan Dharman, about the path of bhakti. Yaihi, and by that teaching, when he receives that bhakti and practices that bhakti, by that bhakti, Atma, the supreme soul of every living entity, the supreme Lord, Tushed, he will become very happy, and Atmadaha, he will give himself to that person. So the means of purchasing Krishna is through the agency of Guru only. Without the Guru, one cannot purchase Krishna. One cannot get the art of purchasing Krishna. So that's what this. Tatra Bhagavatan Dharman Sikshed Guruvatma Daivataha Amayaya Anuvritya Yaihi Tushed Atmatmado Harihi. So this indicates Siksha, but one should also understand Diksha, even though it is not very explicitly mentioned here, but one should understand Diksha also. Shri Krishna Dikshadi Sikshanam. So, what is this Diksha? This is a very interesting subject matter, because Diksha is one of the controversial subject matters. Is Diksha really necessary? These are things which people always talk about, think about. In Bhakti Sandarbha, Srila Deva Goswami quotes this verse to indicate what is Diksha. Divyam Jnanam Yato Dadyad Kuryat Papasya Sankshayam Tasmad Diksheti Sa Prokta Deshikais Tattva Kovidaihi. It is mentioned, Divyam Jnanam Yato Dadyad. Diksha means the syllable Di in Diksha indicates Divyam Jnanam Yato Dadyat. Diksha is the process by which one can awaken his transcendental knowledge. Then Ksha refers to Kuryat Papasya Sankshayam, and vanquish all reactions caused by sinful activities. All of one's prarabdha and aprarabdha karma is destroyed at the time of Diksha. Deshikais Tattvako Vidaihi. A person expert in the study of the revealed scriptures knows this process as Diksha. Divyam Jnanam Yato Dadyat Kuryat Papasya Sankshayam. So this is the meaning of Diksha. It's a very grave thing. Through that process, we establish a link through which the flow of transcendental knowledge can flow from the Guru Sishya Parampara to the disciple. And it also acts as the medium for completely destroying one's karma. But someone may say, is Diksha really compulsory? Can't I progress in bhakti without Diksha? Is the holy name not powerful enough to take me? Do I need to accept a guru? Is the holy name powerful or not? Someone may ask. So let's try to explore this subject matter little bit. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in the Madhya Leela, 15th chapter, interesting verse number also, 108. In this particular verse he says, Diksha Purascharya Vidi Apeksha na kare Jihvasparshe Achandala Sabare Uddhare. He talks about the glories of the holy name. How potent is this holy name? He says, Apeksha na kare. One does not have to undergo Diksha Purascharya Vidhi, the process of Diksha, and the Purascharya Vidhi means those rites which one has to do before taking Diksha. Like it is mentioned in the scriptures that there is a waiting period during which the Guru tests the disciple, and the disciple also tries to see if this is the Guru from whom I would like to take my initiation. Is this the Guru unto whom I want to surrender my life? So there is a time period during which both can evaluate each other. And the means of evaluation of the Guru, the means by which the Guru evaluates the disciple is he sets particular standards. So Prabhupada in the same purport writes that therefore, in ISKCON we don't give Diksha immediately. When the student approaches the Guru sets, okay, 4 regulative principles, 16 rounds for at least 1 year or 2 years, whatever it may be. The standards are becoming little more stricter and stricter. So, these are called as Purascharya. Then when the Guru is satisfied and the disciple is satisfied that yes, I want to surrender my life to this Guru, then comes Diksha. But the Shastras say the holy name does not wait for Diksha and Purascharya Vidhi. Diksha Purascharya Vidhi apeksha na kare. So the holy name does not wait for Diksha and Purascharya. Jihva sparshe achandala sabare uddare. If the holy name touches the tongue of even a Chandala who has not undergone the Purascharya or the Diksha Vidhi, the holy name has the potency to deliver that person. Okay. So, in the purport, Prabhupada quotes this verse from one of the Puranas, I think Padma Puran. He says, Vinaiva Diksham Viprendra Purascharyam Vinaivahi Vinaiva Nyasa Vidina Japamatrena Siddhida. Vinaiva Diksham, without Diksha. Purascharyam Vinaivahi, without the Purascharya Vidhi. Vinaiva Nyasa Vidina, without even the acceptance of the renounced order. Japamatrena Siddhida, just by chanting the holy name, one can attain all perfection. So such verses are there in the scriptures. There is no doubt about this. And Prabhupada in the purport writes a very balanced purport, because these are the verses which glorify the potency of the holy name. But having said that, Rupa Goswami also says that the first 20 limbs of bhakti are non-negotiable limbs, which means you cannot neglect even one of them. So how would you reconcile these two apparently contradictory situations? On one side, the Shastras do say that chanting of the holy name is not dependent on Diksha and Purascharya. On the other hand, Rupa Goswami does say that the first 20 limbs, which includes Diksha, are non-negotiable, you cannot neglect them. So this is a contradiction here, at least there seems to be a contradiction here. So how would you resolve it? Prabhupada resolves it in the purport. We will read Prabhupada's purport and then we will try to reflect on the words of Prabhupada. So Prabhupada in the purport he writes, in other words, chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is so powerful that it does not depend on official initiation, but if one is initiated and engages in Pancharatra Vidhi, his Krishna consciousness will awaken very soon and his identification with the material world will be vanquished. So he says that even though the chanting of the whole Mahamantra is not dependent on the official initiation process, but if one is initiated, Prabhupada says, his Krishna consciousness will awaken very soon. Then he says, the more one is freed of material identification by the process of Diksha and eventually by performing deity worship, the more one can realize that the spirit soul is qualitatively as good as the Supreme Soul. At such a time, when one is situated on the absolute platform, one can understand that the holy name of the Lord and the Lord himself are identical. Abhinnatvad nama namino. The second offense to the holy name, it has two meanings. To consider the names of the demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the names of Lord Vishnu. This is one understanding. Another understanding of the second offense to the holy name is to think that the holy name and Krishna himself are different, or to think that the holy name is a representation of the Supreme Lord. That is not true. The holy name is actually non-different from the Supreme Lord. That is the real understanding. So, here it is mentioned that by Diksha process and by worshipping the deity, the purification becomes faster, by which one can realize how the holy name and the Supreme Lord himself are non-different. With this understanding, if one chants, then one avoids the second offense. But if one chants without this understanding, then it is offensive. So, second offense is committed if one does not receive Diksha and Siksha from the Guru. And the third offense is committed. So, that one should not commit the third offense also. The third offense is disobeying the orders of a Guru. So, if one has not accepted a Guru, then it's okay. But if one thinks, I don't need a Guru, then that is clearly committing the third offense, because it is disobeying, not only disobeying the orders of a Guru, but to think that I don't need a Guru is the extreme form of offending a Guru, actually the Guru Tattva itself. So therefore, even though the holy name is not dependent on the Diksha process, but if the person, if the devotee thinks, I don't need Guru, I don't need Diksha, then he is committing a very serious offense, and through such an offensive practice of devotional service, he will not get any success. So therefore, from one point of view, yes, the holy name is not dependent on Diksha. If by chance a person who has sincerely taken up to the process of devotional service, within heart he has accepted a Guru, but before accepting initiation, either due to some accidental thing he passes away or the Guru passes away, then that does not mean that the holy name will not act on him, because heart of heart he has accepted the Guru. So then initiation process in one sense is a formality. The formality of initiation has not happened. So in such cases, the holy name is good enough to deliver him. That holy name is not dependent on Diksha. But if the person feels, I don't need a Guru, then it is an offense. So therefore, even if the holy name is dependent on Diksha, like Prabhupada's purport very clearly indicates that yes, the holy name does not need initiation, but if initiation is there, then the progress is very easy, and to realize the effect of the holy name is very quick, which means each limb of bhakti is very complementary to the other limb. There is no competition. Like for example, someone may ask, is chanting the holy name dependent upon hearing? Yes, of course, because only through the process of hearing you understand how glorious is the holy name. And when you hear how glorious is the holy name, then we will chant with so much more faith in the holy name. And then when we chant with so much more faith in the holy name, then the chanting will become more potent. So therefore here is Shravanam, which is complementing Kirtanam. And similarly, Kirtanam can complement Shravanam. When whatever you should chant like this, you should not chant like this. When you hear about the various aspects of chanting, and when you practice it in your Kirtan, and when you see clearly that your chanting is improving, then you get more faith in Shravanam. So in this way, if you see, within Bhakti, each limb is complementary to the other limb, and each limb is dependent on the other limb. Just because one limb is dependent on the other limb, that does not make that limb inferior in any way. Just because Kirtanam is dependent on Shravanam, that does not make Kirtanam inferior, because they are all parts of one process, that is Bhakti. Within Bhakti, all the limbs are complementary. So therefore, if chanting the holy name is dependent on Diksha, That does not make the holy name inferior. So therefore, those statements which say that the holy name is not dependent on Diksha only indicates the efficacy of the holy name on those people who do not have any offensive attitude towards accepting a guru. They should not feel, I don't need a guru. Then the holy name will never act on them. Because it is a third offense. Guru or avagnya is the third offense. So the holy name likes the guru because the guru gives the holy name. So if the disciple thinks, I don't need a guru because the holy name is not dependent on Diksha, the holy name will never act on that person. But if by chance a person is not able to undergo the official process of initiation because the guru passes away or the person passes away, under such circumstances, the holy name will take care of him because he has within the heart accepted the guru. So therefore one should understand. So therefore one should never ask such a question that is Diksha really necessary? In fact, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions, as soon as one gets true faith in the process of bhakti, true faith in the process of practicing Shuddha Bhakti, the first symptom that almost immediately appears is that the person feels, I need a guru. I need the association of Vaishnavas so that I can continue practicing this service, this devotional service. That is the first symptom of the appearance of faith. So therefore, if the person after coming to Krishna consciousness is feeling, do I really need to take Diksha? Then which means whether he has received the qualification to practice bhakti itself is a question mark actually. Maybe he has not really received the proper faith, because Diksha, at least one should feel that I need to accept the shelter of a guru. Rather than arguing, is Diksha compulsory? That indicates an offensive attitude. So, and quoting these verses that the holy name is not dependent on Diksha is actually misquoting it, not understanding the real mood of the Bhakti Shastras, not understanding the real mood of Srila Rupa Goswami and other Parampara Acharyas. They all have accepted Diksha. At least one should feel that I need it, rather than arguing that the holy name is not dependent. And even if the holy name is dependent on Diksha, which it is, as Prabhupada presents in this purport, that does not make holy name inferior. That actually glorifies another aspect of devotion, which is accepting the shelter of a guru. So, therefore, Diksha, is it compulsory? At least the receiver of Diksha should not feel that, oh, I don't need Diksha. As long as that is the case, then the holy name does work even without Diksha. So, then the third, let's go to the third limb. He has taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Guru. He has accepted Diksha and Siksha. How is he going to reciprocate with all that he has received? Vishrambena Guror Seva. He has to serve the Guru with respect. And he quotes again from the 11th canto, but this time from the teachings of Krishna to Uddhava in Uddhava Gita. Acharyam mam vijaniyam nava manyeta karhichid nabartya buddhya asuyeta sarvadeva mayo guruhu. He says, Krishna says, Acharyam mam vijaniyam. Understand, O Uddhava, that the Acharya is non-different from me. In one sense, not that he is Vishnu Tattva, kintu praborya priyayeva tasya. He is the most dearmost servant of Krishna. So therefore, the dearmost servant of Krishna should be given the same respect that is due to Krishna. In that sense, Sakshad Haritvena Samasta Shastre. Or as here Krishna says, Acharyam mam vijaniyam. One should know the Acharya as myself. Na avamanyeta karihichid. Never disrespect him in any way. Disrespecting him because he looks like human being, he has a human body, sometimes his human like body becomes diseased and we start disrespecting him. It is the same as avajananti mam mooda manushim tanumashritam. Na avamanyeta karhijit. Krishna says never ever disrespect your guru. Na martya buddhya asuyeta. Considering him to be an ordinary human being, don't compare yourself with him. How many verses my guru knows? Oh, I think I know more than my guru. So in this way, this indicates envy, asuya. Na martya buddhya asuyeta. Don't compare yourself with your guru. We can never ever become on the same level as our guru. So, na martya buddhya asuyeta. Sarva devamayo guruhu. Because the guru is the representative of all the demigods. Sarva devamayo guruhu. So therefore, Krishna himself tells this to Uddhava. So therefore, such a guru, one should serve him with great diligence. That is the third limb of devotional service. Vishrambena Guru or Seva. And then the fourth limb is Sadhu Vartma Anuvartanam, following the scriptural rules as laid down by the Guru. He quotes a verse from the Skanda Puran, Srila Rupa Goswami, to establish this point. Samrigya Shreyasam Hetu Panta Santapa Varjitaha Anavapta Shramam Purve Yena Santa Pratastire. So here, Srila Rupa Goswami says, or Skanda Puran says, Saha Mrigyaha. Mrigyaha means to follow. One should follow Pantaha, that path or that path of scriptural rules. Why? Shreyasam Hetuhu, because the scriptures give the highest benefit. And Santapa Varjitaha, and they are devoid of any hardship. One should follow that path. Yena Purve Santaha Anavapta Shramam Pratastire. And that path is the path which the Purve Santaha, the previous Santas, have followed without any troubles. Anavapta Shramam Pratastire. Easily they have traversed through that path of scriptures. Mahajano Yena Gatasapanta. As Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, that Sayat Pramanam Kurute Lokastad Anuvartate. Yadyadacharati Shreshtas Tattadeveta Rojana. Sayat Pramanam Kurute Lokastad Anuvartate. So whatever a great personality does, common man follows. And whatever he accepts as pramana, common man also does not think, oh, this Prabhuji quotes from this book means that book must be the greatest pramana. So he will accept. Or this Maharaj quotes from this book means this book must be a very bona fide pramana, like that. Sayat pramanam kurute lokastadanuvartate. Therefore, one should accept that pramana which the Purva Acharyas have accepted. In that way, we can progress the path of bhakti, anavapta shramam, without any problem. Very easily we can traverse on the path of bhakti. Another verse he quotes from the Brahma Yamala, which is another Vaishnava Shastra. He says, Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatra Vidim Vina Aikantiki Harer Bhaktir Utpata Eva Kalpate. Shruti Smriti Purana Adi Pancharatra Vidim Vina. If one, without taking into considerations the Shruti Shastras, the Smriti Shastras, like the Vedas and Upanishads, Smriti Shastras like the Puranas and Itihasas, and Pancharatra Vidhi, which talk about how to properly worship the deities. Aikantiki Harer Bhaktir. Aikantiki Harer Bhaktir means steadily practicing devotional service. Utpata eva kalpate. It produces utpat or misfortune. Such a bhakti produces misfortune. This is really interesting. How can practice of bhakti produce misfortune? He may not be practicing Shruti, Smriti, Purana, Pancharatra Vidhimina, but he is steadily practicing bhakti. Nishta or very steady practice. How can steady practice of bhakti produce misfortune? Okay. So that's what we will try to understand. So this indicates because he is not following the sadhuvartma, therefore it will produce misfortune. Even though he may not be practicing the sadhuvartma, following the sadhuvartma, how can practice of bhakti produce that to steady bhakti? How can the stage of nishta produce misfortune? He says, so this verse shows the misfortune, fault or the fault in not observing the rules of scriptures. So Shruti Smriti Purana in this context indicates only Bhakti Shastras. Because he says Aikantiki Harer Bhakti, because the goal is to practice Bhakti, therefore he is not talking about Jnana Shastras. So therefore, if you say that I am practicing Hari Bhakti and this is based on Bhagavatam, but I have not studied the Taittiriya Upanishad, Aitareya Upanishad, Mundaka Upanishad, Mandukya Upanishad, that and all I have not studied. You cannot tell, oh, Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatra Vidhim Vina Aikantiki Harer Bhaktir Utpata Eva Kalpate. No, this does not apply to him. This applies to a person who does not have faith in any scriptures, what to speak of Bhakti Shastras. But for devotees, he should have taste and faith in the Bhakti portion of the Shastras, the Bhakti Shastras like Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, and the Acharya Granthas in the Parampara. One should have faith in them. And one should have faith in the other scriptures also. It's not that he will reject the Jnana Shastras, the Karma Shastras. He will not reject them as being bogus or useless. Then that will become the fourth offense of Shruti Shastra Ninda. He knows that they are all bona fide. The Upanishads are bona fide. The Dharma Shastras are bona fide. The Yoga Shastras are bona fide. The Bhakti Shastras are bona fide. But of all these Shastras, Bhakti Shastras are relevant for me according to my adhikar. I have some faith in Krishna Bhakti, and because of that faith, the scriptures that are relevant for me are the Bhakti Shastras. He should not feel that the Jnana Shastras, Yoga Shastras, Karma Shastras are useless for anyone. So he should understand that it is not useful for me, but it is useful for others who may have adhikar for karma, jnana or yoga. Otherwise, if he thinks that it is not useless, it is not useful for anyone, then such an understanding is an offense to the holy name. The fourth offense, Shruti Shastra Ninda. So bhakti without the rules of the scriptures means bhakti with disregard for the rules because of having no faith in the scriptures. So if one does not follow the scriptures and he says, there is no need to follow the scriptures. I know it is just between me and the Supreme Lord. Why do I have to take guidance from someone to establish a personal relationship with the Lord? No one needs to teach me. If one feels like that, then it is offensive. It does not mean disregard because of fatigue or ignorance. A particular activity, a particular devotional activity, one may not exactly know how to perform. because of ignorance, because he has not read that particular section of the Shastras, therefore he may not know exactly how to practice. That is fine. But if he does not have faith in practicing the Shastras only, then that is a serious mistake. So therefore, this is indicated from this verse, Dhavan Nimilyava Netre Naskalen na Patediha. This path of bhakti is such a clear path that even if one closes his eyes and runs on this highway of bhakti, he will neither slip nor will he fall down. Naskalen na Patediha. Which means, if due to some ignorance, if due to some inattention, if due to some inadvertent mistake, he fails to perform some limb of bhakti properly, if he fails to perform a particular limb according to the indications of the Shastras, that is not taken seriously. But due to lack of faith in the Shastras, he feels that I don't need to refer to the Shastras, then it is an offense. So therefore, here it is mentioned that Srila Rupa Goswami says, Bhaktir aikantiki veyam avicharat pratiyate vastutastu tatanaiva yad ashastriyata ikshate. He says, Bhaktir aikantiki veyam avicharat pratiyate. One sees that, oh, this person is very steadily practicing bhakti, he must be at the stage of nishta, avicharat. Only a person who does not understand the true nature of bhakti will come to such a conclusion. Only one who lacks that discrimination, he will come to such a conclusion. But one who has proper discrimination as to what is Shastriya bhakti, he will conclude that, oh, this steadiness which is seen is not proper steadiness. He will not see it as bhakti. Bhaktir aikantiki veyam avicharat pratiyate vastutastu tata na eva. In reality, it is not steady bhakti, it is not nishta. Why? Yad ashastriyata ikshate. Because he sees, oh, there is no attraction to following the scriptural rules, which means the first quality itself is gone. Because the first qualification for bhakti is Jata Shraddho Matkatasu, faith in the scriptures. Faith in the scriptures is the prime qualification to start bhakti, and if that faith in the scriptures is not seen, then one understands that this nishta which is seen is actually not bhakti itself. That's what he is indicating here. Otherwise, how could it be aikantiki bhakti if there is disregard for scriptures? It is not at all possible. On the other hand, if it is actually aikantiki bhakti, how can it produce utpat or misfortune? That is also not possible. Therefore, the correct understanding is that it looks like aikantiki bhakti, but it is not aikantiki bhakti because ashastriyata, because there is no following the scriptures, which means the basic qualification of faith in scriptures is not there. So therefore, this fourth verse, this fourth limb of sadhu vartma anuvartanam, following the scriptural rules, that is very, very important. Shruti smriti puranadi pancharatra vidim vina aikantiki harer bhaktir utpata eva kalpate. That's what this verse talks about. So therefore, Srila Jiva Goswami says, the devotion of Buddha, Dattatreya and others, because both these personalities are mentioned to be incarnations of the Supreme Lord, whose philosophy is completely reject the Vedic scriptures. Even though Buddha is an incarnation, he taught a kind of religion which rejects the Vedic scriptures. So therefore, we accept Buddha as an incarnation, but we do not accept his teachings. You may say, how is it possible? How can you reject the teachings of an incarnation? The question is, how do you know that he is an incarnation? The Shastras say, oh, Of the 10 incarnations, one of the incarnation is Buddha. So you ask the Shastras whether Buddha is an incarnation or not, then you should also ask the Shastras what is the purpose of his incarnation. Every incarnation has a purpose of appearance. What do the Shastras say about the appearance of Buddha? The Shastras say that uh, that Buddha preached atheistic scriptures in order to bewilder the asuras. So the incarnation of Buddha came, he came to teach atheistic scripture. Atheistic means that which does not accept the Vedic pramana. So he taught that ahimsa paramo dharma. Ahimsa is a very important aspect of dharma, but ahimsa is not paramo dharma. Rather, it is bhakti which is paro dharma. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhakti radokshaje ahaituki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. So, the Shastras very clearly established bhakti to be paro dharma, whereas he came to establish non-violence as paro dharma, just as a tatkalika dharma, just so that people were misusing the teachings of the scriptures to do mass slaughtering of animals to satisfy their tongues, quoting scriptures, rather misquoting scriptures. In order to stop it, he came and first rejected the scriptures. But that was tatkal, that was an emergency situation, just like currently it is emergency situation, COVID situation, work from home, everything is shut down, locked down. This is for emergency, but it's not that this is how the world has to function forever. Because of emergency, such a rule has been put forth by the government. But once the emergency situation is gone, one should not think that henceforth I should never leave my home, I should never go to my office to work. That is not the teaching. So similarly, Buddha's teaching should be understood. So if you accept Buddha as an avatar based on the scriptural quotation, then you should accept why, the purpose of Buddha's descent also. And the Shastras very clearly indicate, Bhagavatam indicates, and the other Puranas also indicate that the purpose of Buddha's descent is to preach a sub-religious principle in order to bewilder the asuras who are using the scriptures, rather misusing the quotes of the scriptures for their own sense gratification. And moreover, the scriptures also indicate that Buddha was a Shakti Avesh avatar. He was not a Vishnu Tattva. Therefore, you cannot accept his teachings as being completely authoritative. The same is true with Dattatreya also. So, in this way, we come to the end of today's discussion, where we have discussed this theme of the first 4 limbs of the 64 limbs we have discussed. First is Guru Padashraya, Shri Krishna Dikshadi Sikshanam, Vishrambena Guror Seva, and Sadhu Vartma Anuvartanam. So thank you very much for your patient listening. It was a pleasure having your association for this part 2 also. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the class, part 3 is starting tomorrow. So tomorrow part 3 is starting. So we are going to continue from where we left off. So I'm hoping and praying that I'll get your association for the part 3 of this course also. And if we can complete the course in part 3, then we will start a new course. If not, there will be part 4 for the same course. Thank you very much for your patient listening. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Rupa Goswami Pad ki jai. Shri Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu ki jai. Hare Krishna.